This is the SAU Report, a program featuring interviews with the faculty, staff, students, and alumni of Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.
Welcome to this edition of the SAU Report. I'm Kerry Bubien.
And I'm Stefan Roth.
Today our special guest from KTBS TV, Channel 3, the ABC affiliate in Shreveport, is Kelly Frey, the morning news anchor, and Gary Hines, the assistant news director. Thanks both of you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to be here.
Kelly, what are your responsibilities at KTBS?
Gosh, a little bit of everything now, aren't they? Actually, the main thing is I anchor the morning show right now, co-anchor it with Robin Roberts. And we've talked a little bit beforehand today, even getting up very early to be in there, having a chance to go through all the scripts and everything for the morning show. And then we go on the air at 5:30 to 7. So and hopefully everybody's up there watching. And I expect you to now from now on also. After we get done the morning show, then I turn into the role of reporter. And we have a 9 o'clock in the morning meeting where we gather all our facts and figures for the day and ideas and kind of pull them around and then head out the door with the photographer, and that's when the reporting begins and putting together a story for tonight's 5, 6, or 10 o'clock news. So my day personally starts very early and usually ends fairly late, but it's a lot of fun. You're not behind a desk hardly at all during the day, and that's what I enjoy.
On the go.
Constantly. So, but it's anchor reporter. I get to do a little bit of both, and that's really my niche. I'm happy doing both right now. So.
Okay.
Gary, I just want to ask you the same questions. What are your responsibilities at KTBS?
Okay. I'm responsible for the day-to-day operation of the newsroom. I supervise the reporters and the photographers, come up with story ideas, supervise the content of it, and then I edit them when they're through for libel and grammatical and flow and make sure there are no holes in the story. And then I also supervise our investigative team, which is 3 people who do in-depth reporting that takes more than just the average day-to-day story. And I'm not over any of the anchors, so Kelly doesn't respond to me for her anchoring, but she does answer to me for her reporting.
Very much so, as a matter of fact. Gary's the man that fine-tunes the stories that we do.
Okay. Kelly, what's your educational background?
Went to the University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, so I am a Yankee from up north. Grew up outside Philadelphia, went to the University of Pittsburgh. Graduated in 4 years, communications as a major, obviously, with a minor in Spanish and in business. And from there, just a lot of hands-on throughout college also, with internships. We've had a chance to talk about that
Radio,
today.
TV?
Radio and TV, actually through high school. The first dabble I ever really did in radio or television was for a local cable station right around in my hometown, and I had a chance to host the Halloween parade. And there was a high schooler hosting it, and we were out on the parade route live, and it was going out over the air for radio. And it was funny when I got a chance to hear that tape afterwards, but had a great time doing that, and always knew that I wanted to get into television, whether it was reporting or anchoring. And then from there, after that little stint with cable, then I started to do more and more things. Actually did some commercials when I was in high school also with my father. And through high school and into college then, just got into internships, a lot of hands-on experience. So, and that was really a big part of my education.
Was just your experiences in general?
Hands-on.
Kelly, how is it that you're in Magnolia today and on the campus of Southern Arkansas University?
How did we end up here?
Yeah.
That almost is beyond my powers. I'm not sure. Jen Marvin called to line that one up, but I think they had asked me personally just to come up here from back in the station, but obviously when I heard about it, though, this has been a tremendous day, just getting a chance to see SAU. We also do the community forums, which is where KTBS, we go out into the community and talk with different groups and kind of find out what's on their mind. It's more of a listening tool for our station. We get a lot of story ideas that way when we hold these community forums, because how often do you get a chance to tell a TV station what's on your mind and what you'd like to see? And so we've used those, and I think today originally was supposed to be more community forums, but then as we really started to work with Jim about getting in here, was also a chance to come to classes and just
educate.
the students here, if you can call it that. Hopefully we've done that today, but we've had a lot of fun just meeting with classes and talking with everyone in them.
Gary, how did the idea of KTBS Community Forum come about? Can you answer that?
I got the tough, I'll try to waddle through this here.
Tough one.
This is the tough question. Well, it's twofold. Number one, we could take the old tack of the media that here's your spinach, take what we give you, it's good for you. Well, that's not journalism in the 90s. So what we do is we go out and we talk to what we call real people who have real jobs, are not in the news business every day, who know the real problems that people take every day. And you can't depend on polls or anything like that because people are going to tell you what they think you want to hear too often. So we go out into the community, all over the architects, and we talk to people. And they tell us what bothers them, what they like, you know, what they would like to see done, their concerns, and we turn those into story ideas. We also have a very expensive state-of-the-art truck. It's a satellite truck, and it's a way to get that out. And the community forums just grew out of the satellite truck going around the architects. So our motto is listening and responding to you, and that's what we do.
And what types of stories have been generated as a result of these forums held in the architects area?
What hasn't?
Yeah, anything from the most mundane, like I'm worried about my taxes, to the last story we got that we really blew out was a lady came up and told us that her husband had died and donated his body to science. And when they got through, they mailed him back parcel post to her. So instead of being buried normally, he arrived in the mail that day. And so you just never know what you're going to get at a community forum. The only thing you can depend on is there'll be a curveball or two.
And can you take us through a whole day with that community forum?
With a community forum?
Yeah, like when you start.
Shelley, this is my third.
You want me to field that
You
one?
take this, baby.
It's actually very simple. We, from start to finish, somebody has a group, PTA, a Rotary Club, here in Magnolia. They want to have KTBS come to do a community forum and hold one. All you have to do is pick up the phone. That's all it is. Somebody from that group will give us a call and say, we'd love to have you come here, do a community forum. We'll pick the date, the time, and that's it. And we'll basically get that out on the air also, that we're going to be in Magnolia that day for a community forum. We did that for when we were coming here today. And we get together with the group that night. It's real simple. It's just to go around and just let people say what's on their mind, talking about your primary concerns, what are the issues in your community, what are your concerns for your children. Children, have to grow up in this area, and if you plan on staying in this area, what's good and what's bad for them, education, crime. These are the things that people are usually most concerned about, and then you tap into some of the unusual circumstances also. And basically, it's just a listening time, and they go on for about an hour, 2 hours, depending on how much everyone has to say, good or bad. And we wrap that up, and as a reporter, it's nice to come back and we bring back all this information, and then you think, gosh, where can I use that as a story idea? This lady had a problem with her sewage system. It's been backing up in the house. Nothing's been done about it. The city isn't working with this. And that's where, as a reporter, we get story ideas that simple from a community forum, and then you start doing the digging and asking the questions, and that can turn into a story and make it on the 6 o'clock news. And here that whole idea came out of the community forum. And it is amazing the stories that you've come up with that we, when I say we being KTBS or in the news business, would never hear about normally if you didn't have a way to tap in to what's really important to the communities. So they have worked out really, really well. And we get calls all the time for community forums to come and listen to what's on people's minds.
Okay. Kelly, what types of pressures do you find working in such a deadline-oriented business such as television?
Other than ulcers? No, I'm just kidding. But it is pressure. Not every day is like that. There are some days you can go out and get a story done and be back in, but then there's other days what people don't realize is you may be sitting there at 5 o'clock fine-tuning the story for the 6 o'clock news, and if it's a story that a photographer has to still put together, then they have to edit it. And I think actually what's funny is I'm almost less under pressure some days than what Gary is, because you're really doing the fine tuning and tweaks to these stories so that they can get out on the air on time. And I don't think, in general, if you've never been in the news business before, there are sometimes 9 hours that goes in to produce one story for what you'll wind up and see on the 6 o'clock news that runs a minute and a half. And that's been a whole day's worth of work, sometimes days and sometimes months if it's an investigative piece. So there's a lot that goes into it, and we're the ones that pull out our hair, but hopefully you'll never see that because all you want to do is get a chance to see it on the news at night.
This morning on First News 3, Kelly, you reported on what is taking place with Main Street Magnolia, and what kind of news stories might we expect today concerning SAU?
Well, tune in tonight at 5 and you'll see. If I give it away, you may not watch. That's the nature of the news business.
Maybe I just want to watch.
Now, tonight actually at 5 o'clock, what we did is we had fun, actually yesterday went around and had a chance to see some of the smaller classes here at SAU. I'll tell you what we did is I sat down with the president yesterday and we just had a chance to talk with him and find out what are some of the real pluses to SAU. Why is this such a good college and such a good university, and what makes this place special? And the number one thing is the enrollment, that you have a smaller campus, so that means smaller classes, better teacher-student ratio, and they're more one-on-one. And number two he brought up was the fact it's just the students here. He said, and I've heard this from more than one person, faculty, staff, students themselves, that said it's the people here because this is such an open and friendly campus. So you're going to see a little bit of that tonight, but I'm not going to give it all away. It's just a fun thing to watch.
Tune in and
Tune in at 5.
The other, Kelly, the other two Shreveport, or maybe this should go to Gary, the other two Shreveport network affiliates which have newscasts are KTAL Channel 6 and KSLA Channel 12. What do you think are the strong points of either station from either a news or public relations perspective?
I would say that Channel 12's strong point, based on all our research that we have, is or was their weatherman, who we have now pirated away and will begin working for us in June. KTAL has a very strong network. It's called Lead In, Lead Out. And when you've got Jerry Seinfeld and ER leading in, that's a tough row to hoe for the competition. Channel 3's strong point is we just have overall better news, and we're the only ones in the market that do investigative and community reporting. And you're seeing part of it today.
Kelly, what is your personal definition of news?
Anything that affects people and what affects people the most. It can be anything from a cat show to a highly investigative piece in corruption in local government. Anything that affects people, that's important.
And what do you think, how did the definition of news changed with all the new tabloids and pseudo news shows like Hard Copy, American Journal? What do you think?
Some people consider that news, to each his own in some ways. It certainly has become more tabloidish when you have more shows like that popping up, and they certainly have their number of viewers. But what you'll notice is that's not local, and what you want to hear from your local news is when I get home at 5 o'clock at night or at 6 o'clock at night from work, I want to be able to switch on the news and find out what's happened during the day that affects me in my community that I didn't know was going on because I was busy in the office or I was busy out with my children that day. So the news here is local, and you need to concentrate on that. Or if it's worldly news, anything that affects me and me personally. And that's what people want to know about, because obviously you don't have time during the day to be in Magnolia, and in Natchitoches, and in Shreveport, but we do, and that's our job.
And would you like to work at a Saudi news show, or do you think that's not news? I want to work for a real news station and just present news.
For real news, I like that. I like that definition. Now, I'm pretty much more of a newsie. I don't think you're going to catch me taking over Jenny Jones's spot anytime soon. The only thing I like some of your more magazine type format shows also. A lot of times at nighttime you'll see more of those, whether it's 2020,
Dateline, Prime Time.
And the thing that's fun about that is they have more time to tell the story, whereas we like to pack in as much as we possibly can because you only have a half an hour or an hour and a half to put all your news in. So, but that's a fun side of journalism, but either one, it's a toss-up.
Gary, what are the responsibilities of a news director or assignment editor in determining which stories are to be covered or their placement in a newscast?
You're basically the filter. You take the comments and the complaints from the public. You take what you know from the wire services and from the newspaper and from your general reading, and you take the ideas from the reporters, and they all come in. And to one funnel, you have a finite amount of time to put the news on. You talk to your reporters and your managers, and you use your common sense and what you know your viewers are thinking, and you weed out and do the most important stories, the most relevant stories, and you stack them or place them in the newscast based on what you think will draw the viewers and what is the most important and how it impacts them. It's not an exact science. It's very much of a judgment every day.
And Kelly, is there a difference in news philosophy when formatting stories lineups for a 5 p.m., 6 p.m., or 10 p.m. news shows?
You know what, I'm going to let Gary tackle that one, just because he has more of the role of what goes in what newscast.
Every day we've got a balance. We don't have all the hubris to believe that somebody's going to sit down and watch 5, 6, and 10. So we want each show to be fresh. So we try not to repeat on some of the secondary stories ourselves at 5 and 6. But if we've got a major story, we will repeat that story. We'll just write it a little bit differently. Sometimes we'll invert the important elements as to how we show them. And then a lot of times 10 o'clock is not greatly different from 6. So every day we have to juggle that, trying to be fresh, but not believing that we can just ignore the news.
Kelly, can you explain to our audience with what an audition tape is, and what relevance does it have in hiring news reporters at Channel 3?
Gosh, well, any station for that matter. You can't get a job without a
An
resume
audition,
tape,
right.
actually, yeah. A resume tape, in a nutshell, I mean, that's what I use as my calling card or my resume. Not only do I send out a paper resume
Right, but
to an
also
employer, but I would send out a tape to go with it. And I know, my gosh, in our news director's office right now, I'm not sure how many resume tapes sit stacked up, but that's what a reporter or an anchor wannabe sends out. And it's just a little 5-minute snippet on a VHS tape maybe of your work. And it's quick and it's snappy and it kind of says, hello world, here I am, hire me.
So not a long, would you be more turned off to get an audition tape that is long, or do you want it short and simple and to the point, and this is how I am, and that's that?
They come in by the dozens every week. You don't get a lot of time. Give me a good representative audition tape. Give me a clean resume with no typos and no grammatical. Okay? When I call you, answer my questions directly and to the point. When you come to see me, your shirt's pressed, your shoes are shined, look at me in the eye. That's your first impression, is the first thing to get in the door. She made a great first impression. She had about a 6-minute audition tape.
I think that was it.
And she had a very good resume. She made a good first impression. We got her in. She got the job.
Let me ask you this, paper resume, long or short? If you've
One page.
one page?
One page.
One
Or if
page.
you've had all kinds of extracurricular activities, no?
You put on the most important, you pick and choose what you want them to know. If they want to know more, they're going to look at that one page because
Right.
they don't have a lot of time. Whoever, and I'm speaking whoever the employer is, don't waste their time. Give them one page, let them know, boom, here I am, and then they'll call you. And the secret is you have to have more things to tell them when they do call you. So your long list of activities that you've done, that's your time to start saying, hey, besides what I already sent you, I've already been
Right.
involved in this, this, and this. But if you put it all on a sheet of paper and they call you and say, well, what else have you done? And kind of are at a loss for words, guess what? You're probably not going to get the job.
If you're looking at an audition tape, what do you think makes a good news reporter or a good television reporter?
In a word?
Yeah.
Curious. By the way, why were you looking down at your shoes? See if they're polished?
No?
I want somebody who's curious. That's the bottom line. We can teach you and you'll grow everything else as long as you want to know about life and about the news and about people.
What do you think? What do you think is a good television reporter?
Aggressive. Curiosity comes into play also, but you have to have, you have to be interested I guess, in what's going on around you, and interested just in people in general. Because if you don't care about people, how in the world are you ever going to do the news? Because news is what affects people. So, and that's the bottom line. And you have to enjoy your job then on top of that. So, and that's why I love what I do.
Gary, what types of constructive criticism are news producers looking for from outside consultants? And do such comments improve the overall quality of the newscasts?
That's a good one.
No
I'm
producer.
getting you.
I'm not a producer, and they would give you a far different answer, but I will tell you that the producers are not looking for constructive criticism from any outside consultant, that they consider them to be hired guns, that they would prefer constructive criticism from their colleagues, and sometimes from their bosses and from the viewers.
But not outside.
They don't like consultants.
And Kelly, what made you decide upon a career in television? And since we have a lot of mass communication majors here, what do you think is the most important courses to take in a college?
The funny thing is, what made me decide, I can't honestly remember when I first decided that this is what I want to do, because I've always known, I was a little girl and said, oh, I want to be an anchor woman. And that was kind of like the first taste of it, and that was years and years ago. And then it was almost more like saying you want to be a veterinarian or you want to be a doctor or a lawyer. But I just always had it in the back of my mind since, gosh, before junior high, I'd even say, because I started to get involved with student council, anything that I was public speaking, sports, was always the one that was out there doing activities. And through the years, it just kind of grew, and it was never a question in my mind not to get into news. That's it. I don't know if that's much of an answer, but I don't know. I've just always known that I've wanted to do it. And then through part of what, referring back to the internships, but part of my education was things like student council and getting involved in student government groups or any type of public speaking or newspaper. And through college, I took every communications course that I possibly could get, tailored them to more like public speaking, writing, composition writing, magazine writing, newspaper writing, anything writing. Because contrary to popular belief, you see us on television, but we're writing almost everything that we say. So you have to have a good background in writing to do that. And that's the key. But the catch is television writing is entirely different from writing for magazine, newspaper, essays, compositions. So that's where you need the internships to get in and work with people in the field. Because boy, did I ever dispel some myths when I started to go through and understand truly what television writing is all about. So it's a combo between your classes, your activities, and then also just getting in and getting that hands-on experience.
Do you think there are some other courses that students need, like history courses, or should they take more philosophy? Or?
Depends what your niche is. If you want to go in, if you're interested in history and that's something, you should have a good background and knowledge in general to go into news specifically. How can you possibly talk about the situation with Clinton and Monica Lewinsky if you don't know the key players or know much about it? And that comes down to picking up the newspaper in the morning. And whether it's your local news or national news, you need to know what's going on in the world around you. And some of those things you can't learn in a book at the university. That just comes to life and just reading everything that comes your way. But it certainly doesn't hurt to have other courses to broaden your horizons. You need to know that to filter it into your news.
And how important is clear, concise writing in news?
You know what? If you can't write clear and concise,
Forget it.
forget it. That's the whole number one thing. Because in the news business, our main point is to get the news out to you. And the only way to do that is to help you understand it and make sure that you can understand it. Gary says 3 key words.
Brevity, accuracy.
That's it.
I heard that today. Kelly, what advice would you give to college or high school students watching this program about pursuing a career in television?
Oh, do it. It's great. If this is something that you want to do, by all means, go for it. Never look back and say, gosh, I wish I would have done that. I could have easily gone in. I had a job offer out of college, making $40,000 a year, company car, and selling payroll services. But you know what? I didn't want to do that, and it was a great offer. But I wanted to become a reporter, and I wanted to do news and anchor. And if that's what you want to do, you have to shoot for it, and then if it doesn't pan out, so be it.
Right.
You know, a lot of people say, in my job, every day is different. In our job, every day is really different. No two the same.
You must be an Aries. Are you an
Actually,
Aries?
I'm not.
Oh.
That's okay.
Gary, how much does a remote truck such as Earthlink 3 cost, and what are the advantages of being able to broadcast live from anywhere in the Occultax?
I do not know what it costs, but the advantages are immeasurable. You can be just about anywhere in the Occultax within 2 hours. Your competition cannot compete with you, and it just gives you an incredible advantage over getting on the air quickly. And in our business, you know, it's great. You have to be, you know, first. You have to be accurate, and this gives us the tools to do it. It's just, you cannot put a price tag on the valuables of that truck. It's allowed us to do a great deal of scooping and get it out first, and it's a great investment.
For example, even being here today, your live trucks, which a lot of people don't understand, your live trucks for the station can only go in a certain radius. With this satellite truck, you can go all over, and we took you live during our 11:30 show today from the campus of SAU, which we couldn't have done that with a typical live truck here today. We're just too far away from the station. So, but we got you on live.
Kelly, when you watch your own work or read back copy you have written, what type of constructive criticism do you place upon yourself?
How's the saying go? You're always your hardest critic. And it's still that way, and I think it'll always be that way. Whether it's watching an air check and I didn't like a gesture, or it's listening to my package, and you're always wishing almost in this business too that you had more time to put stories together. Sometimes it's that deadline thing, and you have to get it together and get it on the air, but it's just almost wishing I had more time some days to go back through and rewrite things. And if you ever stop doing that and think, wow, that was a fantastic piece, then it's kind of like you've reached a plateau. So you always want to be able to make improvements to things.
Kelly, what is your reaction to the concept of family-sensitive news, shielding children from possible disturbing violent videos?
Yeah, that's a fine line to walk, because a lot of news is disturbing. Speaking of the Florida, some of the Mother Nature ripping through Florida, causing all those problems, and that is graphic video, at least some of it is that I have seen, but it is news. So you've got to walk a fine line with what you put out. When it comes to certain almost murder cases and things like that, certainly you never show certain scenes. If it's something that's really pertinent to the story, then you need to make people aware that, hey, there is some video coming up. If you have small children in the room, take them, step outside, or switch it off for a couple minutes. But if it's news, you kind of have to walk the fine line is how much should you show based on how important that story is. And if it's really important to the story.
Would you call it censoring news if you cut certain issues out?
I don't call it censoring. I think that's too strong of a word, but I think it's just being careful. And there's certain things that, yeah, we do have the power in our hands, I guess, to show or to not to show, but there's certain things that just aren't appropriate if you're sitting around the dining room table at night that I wouldn't want to see as a person sitting in my home. And you just have to be careful with that. It's a fine line, and 9 times out of 10, people do not want to see the overly graphic things on the news at night. So you can walk around that and still get the point across and still get the news out.
It's really more a matter of sensitivity and good taste rather than censorship.
Okay.
Good question, though, because that's something that Gary deals with a lot.
Kelly, what would you like your ultimate legacy to be in the television field, and what do you think you do best in your area of expertise?
Boy, that's a tough one, too. I don't know what my legacy is, but why don't you ask me 30 years from now when I've had more time? Probably to go back, one thing that I always want to hope that everybody gets from my stories is that I do care. I care about everything that I do because I love what I'm doing, and that's what's so important about it, is that you're dealing with people. And that would be the one thing, is that I'm a human. I'm just like everybody else, and I just get a chance to put it on television every night. What was the second part to that question?
What do you think you do best in the area of your expertise?
Oh, I don't know. I'd let that up to the viewers to decide. I like being live. If that's when I'm just looking at whether doing reporting, being on the set in the morning, or being out live. I love being out live at places because it really takes you to the action, and you're right there, and it's the feeling that you just can't quite ever get if you're sitting on a set or back in the newsroom. So.
And finally, what will be your lingering impression of your visit to SAU?
Boy, a little bit of everything. We had a fantastic lunch. We've had a tremendous time meeting everybody in the classes this morning. Probably everybody that I've met through the classes. That was just, I felt like I was back in college again. I probably don't want to leave. I have to actually go back and do work now. but the people here.
Well, we'd like to thank Kelly Frey and Gary Hines from KTBS Channel 3 today for joining us.
Thank you.
This is the SAU Report. I'm Kerry Bubien.
And I'm Stefan Roth.
The SAU Report is a production of broadcast journalism students in the Department of Theater and Mass Communication at Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.